Hi guys, how's it going? Let me first preface this with the information that what I'm going to say next is my personal opinion. What we're going to get into is what I think is one of the big issues with Dead by Daylight, and that is just simply the way certain perks affect the game. Now, we take it back to basics. Everything I say is based around the concept that if a survivor or a killer was to do a certain thing with no perks, that should be a very damning situation for that individual person, if not the team, if they're playing survivor. So going in with that, we're going to look at some perks, and I'm going to try and show you why I think there's a substantial disbalance between survivor perks and killer perks and what they're capable of doing in the whole game. So let's start. Let's look at the survivor perks first of all, and let's get down to really what I think the issue is here. So first of all, and going in the order that perks are shown on the actual perk list in the game, we've got Borrowed Time, perk that a lot of people use. Basically, when you're in the killer's terror radius at a hooked individual and you want to hook that person gets an endurance status effect for 15 seconds, which allows them to tank a hit. So if you are still in danger with a terror radius around you, you can go to that hook even though a killer's right next to you. And so long as you don't get grabbed off, you can pick that person off the hook and your teammate can get away scot-free. You might have to take it down. Generally speaking, the person who you are trying to save, who would be in the most danger, is now safe. I understand the concept of perk, but you understand in a normal game situation, unhooking somebody with a killer nearby should never be considered safe. The fact that it's made safe by a perk is what it's on the list for. It's a very good perk. Next up, Dead Hard. It's what most people consider to be the best exhaustion perk. At its concept phase, pressing the activated button allows you to dash forward slightly and also gives you an invincibility frame. Now that can allow you to avoid a hit. Of course, most people now know that the most powerful aspect of Dead Hard is using that slight little boost of speed to get to a window vault or a pallet or some other resource to evade the killer and prolong a chase, keep it going for maybe an extra minute or two, who knows. It's a very powerful perk. What is it in the list for? Because under any other circumstance when Dead Hard becomes viable, you would ordinarily be downed. You've made a mistake, you've put yourself out of position, you just made a blunder. But the perk is going to save you from being downed. Next up, Decisive Strike. You have been hooked. Your teammate has come in, unhooked you, and the killer has found you again or just tunneled you away. The perk was designed to stop tunneling, but the perk does not actually stop tunneling. All it stops is a very narrow-minded set of tunnelers who will just literally go after the same person, down them, pick them straight back up again, try and put them on a hook immediately. That's all it stops. The perk itself allows someone on your team to farm up a hook and allows you to get off scot-free, when really it's a team game, and in any other situation that occurred like that without this perk, it would have been a very bad situation for you. But the perk allows you to get away with it and allow you to potentially escape, or at least have 60 seconds where you're capable of escaping for free. Deliverance is a perk you don't see very often, but after you've unhooked somebody safely in the game before you yourself has been hooked, Deliverance comes into effect. When you are hooked, you're able to unhook yourself but gain the broken state effect. Under any other circumstance you'd have to attempt to escape. Deliverance allows you to cut that entirely, get off scot-free, and also allow you to bring in other perks that will synergize extremely well with Deliverance and give you a 60-second invincibility frame if you want to go that route with Decisive Strike or Unbreakable. Next up, it's not exactly a meta perk, but you do see fairly often. Resilience on its own isn't an extremely strong perk, but under normal circumstance, if you would be injured, would you gain an increase in action speed? You wouldn't. Resilience can work really well with a vaulting build with Spine Chill, allow you to vault really quickly. Actually, I think it's like 15% faster, so it can come in really, really clutch at times. It's not a bad meta perk, but I am trying to show you that I'm looking at all the perks, not just the obvious grouping that you always see people moan about. Soul Guard next. When you've been slugged on the floor, if you get picked up, you will gain the endurance status effect for 8 seconds, which allows you to tank a hit. If you're obviously you get picked up, you're injured still. If the killer comes within those 8 seconds, hits you, you can run off and gain the deep wound stays effect, but you're not actually put back down on the floor. Any other situation, if you were picked up and the killer come, smacked you, you'd be down on the floor, back to being slugged. Sprint burst. The way most people run sprint burst is they will allow the killer to come close or try and maximise the generator, yada yada yada. So really this perk is on here based on people's playstyle rather than the perk itself. When used like the method I've shown you, sprint burst allows the killer to come nearby. Even if the survivor's out of position, in a really bad spot, in a dead zone, sprint burst could affect and make them zoom off, get into a good position, reset themselves and begin a much more effective and efficient loop which can really waste the killer's time. Unbreakable. You're down on the floor. You've been put down because you've done a bad job at surviving. You're on the floor and you can increase your recovery speed by 35%, and eventually once that meter is up to 100% you can pick yourself back up the floor and carry on your merry way. Very strong perk, potentially the most game-changing perk on the game when it's used in a certain way against a certain killer. Iron Will, when you're injured, it will reduce your sense of pain by 100%. Obviously, that means that when you're injured, you've got a very similar set of benefits to when you're completely healthy. Iron Will is a fantastic perk. I recommend any survivor to run it. It's really strong, and it's one of the. I think it affects your survivability more than a lot of the immediate perks that people think about. You like it's a decisive strikes, your adrenalines. I think Iron Will is actually stronger, but the fact that it's so subtle and people don't get an immediate information about it, people kind of think of it as a bit less than the likes of what I just said. I think it's really strong. Tenacity is another one, not the strongest perk. It's far from the meta. Just allows you to crawl 50% faster and also recover while doing so. Again, if you put yourself in a bad spot, or you've just simply been down by a killer that's effectively killed you, or dropped you to the floor I should say, this will give you a chance of getting up more than just staying grounded and recovering. Not as strong as Unbreakable by any means, but still shows that you get a benefit for what you could perceive as doing something bad under the umbrella term of surviving. Now they're on to killers. Killer is probably a little bit more subjective because there are other perks that I haven't listed here, which you could say you get a benefit of sorts when you're not playing particularly well or the survivors are doing something very good. But anyway, this is the list that I've made at the moment. Starting off with, again in the order it comes on the perk list, and I will say again, I haven't got all the perks for killers, so this list is quite a little bit more narrowed down. Pig's the one with the most time. I've got 5 pages. This is where I gained these perks from. Anyway, Bitter Murmur. When a generator gets completed, survivors within 15 meters will show up as auras for 5 seconds. So, as a killer, you're trying to kill people. You're also trying to keep a hold on the generators. When generators get done, obviously your game is kind of slipping away from you. Bitter Murmur gives you a benefit for your objective slipping away from you a little bit. Aura reading is very strong on the game, don't get me wrong, but Bitter Murmur isn't a perk you see very often at all. I barely ever use it. Blood Warden. At the end of a game, when the exit gates are powered and you hook somebody while at least one gate is open, Blood Warden will come into effect. At level 3, it'll block the exit gates for 60 seconds, which means if you let the timer run down to just below halfway, I believe it is, you can actually get all 4 people killed. Even if somebody comes and saves that person off the hook, all four people can die. So you get a reward for your generator being completed and the other team opening its exit gates, which means under any other circumstance, 3 people could have escaped, 1 person could have died. Blood Warden potentially allows you to kill all 4 people at the end of the game. Brutal Strength. You're in a chase, survivor drops a pallet. You're unable to down that person quickly enough, especially at a safe pallet, you need to break that and continue the chase on, so you're losing time to kill that person, and that's a very, very valuable resource. Brutal Strength allows you to break a pallet 20% faster. It also works for unbreakable walls and the kicking up generators. Crawl Limits. When a generator is completed, yet again your main objective, when a generator is completed within 24 meter range, all multiple areas are blocked for survivors, windows and vault locations. 30 seconds, 24 meters. Not the strongest, and on big open maps, that is a very weak perk. Indoor maps that are close by could be very strong, but putting the perk on, you sort of trying to hope that RNG is in your favour and you get a indoor map, or generators in very strong locations for survivors where you can block areas off, down people where you wouldn't normally down, but it's very RNG based. Right, next group of perks here we got everyone's favourite, Hex No One Escapes Death. At the end of a game, if there is at least one dull totem left on the map, Hex No One Escapes Death becomes activated. It gives a 4% speed increase to the killer, so a 115% movement killer would obviously be 119% compared to the base 100% that survivor moves up. And also makes every survivor have the exposed status effect. Basically when they killer M1s them with their base attack, they will get down instantly, whether they're in healthy state or not. Very strong perk, but has the counter that if survivors do totems during the match, perk will not become useful. No, it also generally only really affects 1 or 2 people at the end of a game unless people are playing very badly. It's very rare that Hex Noed will actually completely demolish the whole team at the end of the game. Is it a strong perk? Yeah, definitely. Is it as game breaking as people suggest? No, but obviously when you get hit by it, it gives you a very deflated, especially if you played really well and you get hit by this and killed by it, it gives you a very deflated feeling. That's where most anger comes from. In terms of effect, Noed is one of the least effective meta perks, you want to call it that you can probably put on as a killer. And that's why a lot of people suggest you don't put it on. Play with your food next. You're in a chase with the obsession. To get used to play with your food, you have to then ignore your chase, the obsession, break chase to gain a token. You can gain up to 3 tokens, which means most people will engage in the chase, leave the chase, engage in the chase, leave the chase, engage in the chase, and either leave that chase or down that person and keep 2 stacks. If they leave that person, then they get 3 stacks to try and down somebody with. Each time you use a aggressive power, whether your M1 hit or a power such as Demogorgon Shred or Kicks Ambush, you will lose a token. It's very, very strong on one hit down killers. Other than that, it's more of a gimmicky perk than anything else. It also makes you lose a lot of time while trying to gain those tokens. Tinkerer comes up next. When a generator is up to 70% repaired, so your main objectives got 70% completed of it, you will gain the undetectable status effect for 16 seconds at level 3. This allows you to go to the generator, hopefully interrupt that generator, get completed. But again, Tinkerer is a perk that relies on situations occurring. It requires you to be in a situation where you can easily get back to that generator that's nearly completed. So you either need a high mobility killer, needs to be in the nearby vicinity, or something else needs to occur which allows you to get back in time. If you haven't got any of those available to you, Tinkerer doesn't really come in handy. All it does is make you get to the generator and see you get completed. Strong perk on killers like Billy and Oni. High mobility killers are going to find that really useful. Other than that, not so much. It's a lot better than it used to be though. It recently got buffed up, so you can imagine how bad that was before. Enduring. When a pallet hits you in the chase, you get stunned. 50% less than normal. So allows you to get back into the chase very quickly. Also allows you to do a few little tricks that you might not have otherwise known how to do, such as if someone's on the side of the pallet to you and you get stunned on that same side, if the survivor tries to vault that pallet, your stun reduction actually has a chance of allowing you to grab that person off the pallet before they can get to the other side. Very strong. Very good perk. Very nice. And last but no means least, and not in the order that I said I was going to put them in, Unrelenting. The best perk in the game. I'm joking, don't put it on. Unrelenting allows you to recuperate faster from a missed attack at level 3 by 30%. So if you miss your attack, you can recuperate slightly quicker. That's the perk. Enjoy. And so we come back to the more wide open discussion about the perks and why I think they are unbalanced for the game. Survivors have 4 people in the team. Killers have 1. When a survivor makes a mistake, there's always 3 people with brain cells hopefully able to correct the mistake that you made. If you like 99 8 generator but got grabbed off it before it got completed. 3 of your teammates are potentially able to hit that generator and complete it in time. If you get downed, 3 of your teammates are potentially able to come and pick you up. I hope you can see what I'm trying to get at here. You, by the definition of having a team with you, are able to compensate for mistakes already. By base default, no perks involved, you as a survivor can play the game knowing that there is a good chance any mistakes that you make in this game may not dictate what happens at the end of it. If you make a mistake as a survivor, it doesn't mean that the game is over. It doesn't mean that the game cannot be a success. Change out to killer now. You are a person playing on your own. Any mistakes that you make by default without any perks, absolutely down to you. You got to live with them. There's nobody there that can help lift your performance back up and get the game back on track other than yourself. And now we look back at the perks. There's a hell of a lot of perks there, and a lot of perks are in the meta for survivors which compensate people for playing poorly or put themselves in a situation where ordinarily, without perks, would have got them punished. Killers, on the other hand, their perks, most of them not in the meta. The perks that can help them perform, uplift them from a bad performance, they just don't do much. The likes of Bitter Murmur is performed by other perks or just better information perks like Barbecue and Chili. Whispers. Blood Warden, you're only getting used to it if you have a really bad game, and as long as survivors don't 99% the gates, and you need a set of circumstances to come to effect for Blood Warden to actually work. Brutal Strength. The time that you make up from breaking that pallet and re-engaging that chase is nothing compared to what the survivor might have with an exhaustion perk. Cruel Limits. You're requiring a small map, you're requiring a set of circumstances to happen for that to become useful. Hex no, you can cleanse totems right from the off in a game to counter that perk if you wanted to. Play with your food, you've got to literally break chases, you've got to ignore people to get tokens, and then it's so easy to lose those tokens again. Tinkerer, only really useful on small maps, or if you've got a very fast killer that can get to locations quickly, or if you're in the general vicinity of a generator that's being completed. And even if that's the case, you're probably likely to find that person on the generator anyway. Enduring, useful, that's probably the best on the list, I'd say. Gives you a nice boost in speed to recover from getting hit by a pallet, allows you to re-engage in the chase, and also quite often the survivor keeps on running, might not even have to lose Bloodlust, so you can get straight back into the chase without losing Bloodlust and be on the heels and be faster than normal. Unrelenting, it needs nothing else said, it's one of the worst perks in the game. There are some little texture can do, but it's so niche that it really isn't really worth putting on. You can kind of compare it to Dead Hard. So Dead Hard, when a killer's coming and he's about to hit you, he's going to hit you, Dead Hard come to effect and that survivor can avoid the hit entirely, get to a safe location, bing bang bosh, things continue. Now a killer, other way around, they're going for the hit, but they can't hit you, and their reduction is only 30%. They're going to struggle to get back into the chase, things can happen. Survivors can still get to a location and keep themselves safe. That's why, so kind of like, Dead Hard, very strong, Unrelenting, extremely weak. But they don't do the same job, but there's a similarity there, I'd say, in terms of how close each player is and what can potentially happen between them. That's one of my major gripes about this game, though, is how the team side have such good perks when they do poorly. Survivors get a plethora of things they can put on that help them out when they get in the injured state, when they get downed, when they're on a hook after they got hooked. There's a lot they can do, and that's also adding on to other game mechanics that I don't fully agree with. Body blocking, I think, is a very, very strange game mechanic. If you think about it also from a semi-realistic point of view, right, a killer is able to completely obliterate a very sturdy looking wooden pallet, which no human being would be able to do in that certain manner. And yet, a tiny little Nancy is able to crouch down in front of a killer and completely block every bit of momentum he could possibly have. Very strange. There's things like that added together with certain perks can make it very frustrating for a killer, especially when they're playing well, and these perks come in very, very clutch. Now, I am a person who plays more Survivor than Killer. I have got a more killer-sided brain, I will say that, so I am slightly biased, and I will agree with that. But I think there's a very interesting disparity here between perks and what they're able to do. Survivors get a very nice healthy buff when they do something that ordinarily would punish them. Killers don't get the same amount of love for when something goes wrong for them. And that for me is why Killer is an extremely frustrating experience to some people, why Survivor is such a very chill experience to some people. And I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for checking out the video. I hope you've had some food for thought. Let me know what you think, whether you agree, disagree, comment. Please do check out my Twitch. I'll show down below. And yeah, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.